This is the same as church steeples. When's the last time you guys inspected a nice church steeple with the bells on the top? Yeah, so fire escapes are in that category. They've been ignored nationwide for 50 to 75, if not almost 100 years. And the problem right now is pieces are starting to fall off these fire escapes and they're killing people down on the street. So we'll show you that in a second. Okay? So this is some guidelines. By the way, lead safe. Are you guys aware that EPA says you have to have a renovator's license? So write this down in your little notebooks. You have to send your men to an EPA renovators class if they're going to be doing any work on a fire escape. This class is held every week, every 2 weeks, somewhere in your city. And it's 150 to 250 bucks, right? And that class is to basically tell you how to scrape anything that has lead. Because a fire escape is older than 1978, it's presumed to have lead, so you just can't scrape it and paint it. You have to have somebody that, painting company that has an EPA renovator's license. They know what to do with the chips. There's no power sandblasting, there's none of that stuff. Number two is, because it has lead paint, you can't weld on it. So even though welding a fire escape was an activity, it was never an approved method. Welding a fire escape is never an approved method of repair. Okay? Because I'll give you an example of that is I'll take one of these pieces. The reason why welding is not allowed, first of all, you're burning lead. So that came out in 2010. So it's not an old law, it's a brand new one. EPA says if you get caught welding on a fire escape with lead paint, or you get caught scraping and painting and your men don't have the proper uniform, the proper mask, you're not de-leading. It's not oxygen tanks and the whole, it's not that. It's an EPA renovator's license. All general contractors have to have it when they're doing buildings in demo. They got to deal with any lead still left in a building. Fire escape guys too. So what that means? No welding. The fine, $37,500 bucks per event. So you got to make sure that, and again, all fire escapes are bolted together anyway. Why would you weld it? You would weld it because when you look for a price to fix this fire escape, you're going to get the magic 3 numbers. The first, because you wrote a violation that came from Reg 4, says scrape it and paint it. So you know what a scrape and paint is? When the guy calls out, he calls a painting guy. He says, "Oh, your 3-story fire escape, I will scrape and paint for $3,000." He goes, "Thank you very much," because he has a violation from Reg 4, and he wants to resolve it because one of you guys wrote a violation, scrape and paint. The second guy, but the painting guy says, "Hey, I was upstairs and I noticed a couple of treads were loose." He goes, "Oh, I got another guy." So he calls the welding guy or the ornamental guy. The welding guy comes out and says, "Hey, I can do this job and I'll weld up all your treads for $13,000. And I can paint too, so I'll include the paint job in there." He goes, "But some of that has rust inside. I don't know. Normally you're supposed to take that apart." The guy goes, "No." So he goes, "You should talk to an iron worker who knows how to take these things apart." So he gets a third bid. And the third bid, it comes from an iron worker, you know, guys who put up, he has a shop, builds miscellaneous metals. He goes, "Yep, I have to take the whole thing apart because I've got rust. Some of the metal is gone. I'm going to have to replace some of the metal, some of the tread, some of this." He goes, "How much?" He goes, $33,000. The magic 3s. The owner looks at his violation from Reg 4, says, "What's it say?" Scrape and paint. He has three proposals. 3,000, 13,000, 33,000. Guess who's won the bid for 50 years plus? The welding guy. Because when you come back and do the re-inspection, after the welding guy shows up and welds all this shut, and paints it and hides it from your view, and you send out your inspector again to look at what? This or the ladder? No, if you're doing an annual.
Oh, a ladder.
So after they scrape it and paint it, right, and they weld all these things shut, and you send your annual guy back out there, what's he look at? A ladder.
Is this from a landing or?
This is a representative of all connections you're going to see. It's 2 pieces being joined. So what happens is, he passes the annual, he says, yeah, the ladder works good. And he looks at the rest of the fire escape that's just hidden in black and caulking. And guess who carries all the liability? Guess who gets their Reg 4 annual? And guess who gets one more year free ride to the next year? So let's keep on going. So be aware, you can't use the welding shops. By the way, the ornamental guys that make railings and window guards, they're great to do this kind of work. Welding guys are great too if you take the gasoline out of their welding machines, because they have the same tools. As long as they don't weld the job, they go there and they break bolts, separate, replace steel, welding guys are good. But be aware, welding guys, ornamental guys are limited to 2.5 stories on their insurance. For them to do 5, 10, 15 stories, they need to have iron workers insurance. And sometimes that's the difference between $10 a hundred or $30 a hundred. And that's all workers' comp. Whoever of you deal with workers' comp, so you may have a guy doing a job, I don't know if the owner hires him and he's not able to get on the high spots because it's beyond his insurance rate, you could have a situation. You have a question?
What do you mean by the ladder?
The drop ladder or the cantilever. That's all we're inspecting on a Reg 4.
I hope not what I took on.
Oh, those guys.
Well,
He's hiding behind a post over here. How many of you are doing a full-blown inspection on a fire escape?
You guys aren't walking the whole thing?
Well, actually, that's a different story. How many of you are walking the whole thing?
Right.
Yeah, right? You're walking the whole thing, right? Are you structurally inspecting this fire escape? Are you allowed to structurally inspect this fire escape?
No, just make sure.
Just make sure that what?
Everything in place, not,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if it's attached to the building height or not.
Right.
Right.
But so how do you know it's attached to the building?
Jump and see if you're not.
Ah, you're,
Climb on it.
well, we're gonna explain that. So today, let's just get, and by
I
the
just want to
way,
make sure, because unless I'm missing something, but when we do the test of and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys probably been doing this longer than I have. When we're on the fire escape, we're top to bottom, just like when I test guys, we're looking at top to bottom, we're looking at every landing, we're watching the whole thing.
You have to walk the whole area.
Absolutely. And if
but
you're
are you
not,
making,
I-
no problem,
make
but
sure
are
we're
you
looking.
making a comment on the structure?
We don't know.
Right, you're checking for rust, bolts,
Yeah.
all that stuff that we're talking, okay. Let's
So
make sure I'm on
I know, well,
on the same
we're-
page,
we're
because
gonna
that's- as a firefighter, that's what matters. When we're on a particular floor, hey, I wanna make sure at least the guy's been on this thing
Sturdy,
every
right?
year, and it's
Yeah.
sturdy, and we know what it is, the
Mechanical
dead load.
So how many of you have looked for this
So,
on the fire escapes?
you're checking for rust, I
Oh, yeah.
hope, right, when you're seeing stuff like that.
So I'm gonna show you an inspection I just did,
Yeah, Chris.
and I'll show you what, and it just passed. And so there's a question, because if you're looking for it structural, right, you're crossing into a 5-year liability. Because some of this stuff, if you're not properly trained what to look for, you may not see it, and if somebody gets hurt, including a fireman, somebody's gonna be in a lawsuit.
Yeah.
So we're gonna cover that, just so you know. Let's make it simple so that John understands how easy this is supposed to be. Assuming, back to the chair model, that this has already had a 5-year by Allen.
Yeah.
This was 100% pristine last year. Allen did it. He checked for everyone. He knows exactly what he knows about the connection into the building. He knows about the rust jacking into every connection. He checked every tread, every rail. He's got photographs. He's got pictures of everything. You guys got pictures and photographs, or are you using your eyeball photograph?
Well, sometimes both.
So he's done a complete test on this chair. Now you're going to do your annual 1 year after a 5-year. So don't forget, for 50 years, there's never been any 5 years. So these guys have been assuming a lot more responsibility, and they've never been trained properly how to look for these things. And I'll show you a Culver City that I just did yesterday. I got a sticker on it that says 2018 November, and I just failed it. So I'll show you some of the things you guys look at that you may be missing. And it's okay. He's new at this too. And we've been saying that the 5-year and the 1 year has morphed a little bit simply because there was never a 5-year. So the 1 year started taking on more and more responsibility and crossing the road. We're trying to tell you, stop. 1 years are here. 5 years are here. So this represents a fire escape. this has been done, okay? This has been done by an architect or a structural engineer or others acceptable, and they've done all this. They're telling you in a 5-year, before you even get on it, that this thing is 100% good. Now Assembly's tester steps in. And an Assembly's tester represents two people, tenants and firemen. So what does he want you to do for the tenants? He wants you to make sure that all the windows and the doors get you access to this fire escape, correct? Well, this is a brand new fire escape, brand new paint job, structurally sound, no bent legs, the back looks good, right? So what do you do as a for the tenants? You're gonna walk the whole thing all the way down to the bottom when you're gonna release the cantilever or release the ladder 2 times. Bring it up, drop it down 2 times. It must drop slowly, 2 to 3 feet per second, and that's this representation, right? Well, I know this thing is gonna hold me because he did a 5-year on this one. If I get hurt on this thing a year later, do I sue the city or do I sue this guy? So I come in here and I do my test and I come out as a representative of the tenants. I come out the windows or I come out the doors and I check all those things and I come and I sit. I do one of these. How comfortable am I doing one of these on this fire escape or on this chair if this guy did it 5 years ago? I mean, yet last year he did a 5-year. Comfortable? Safe? Okay, get off. And again, must be structurally sound, must be get painted, so I'm doing my annual. Looks like it's been painted. It looks like it's structurally sound. The back is good, seat's good, no bend. Trees haven't hit it, lightning hasn't hit it. Can I do my 1 year? That's what you're getting. You're getting, now I'm going to represent the firemen. Now it's not just get out the window, get out the door. Firemen, I got to get on the roof. And I got to come down the ladder. If I'm too scared to come down the ladder, what do? I go to the roof, check the connections. Go down to the next floor below, look up, and verify, because I'm supposed to do, you know, you want to make sure that if a fireman is pulling on that gooseneck, she's not going to give. But then I go to do the rest. The fireman wants to do the same thing. He wants to go all the way down, check everything, check all the legs, check everything, and he wants to drop the ladder. And it's good, you know why? Because 5 years, he did a test. And his insurance, oh my God, he's a design professional. What kind of insurance he carries? He carries liability insurance and errors and emissions insurance. In case he was not looking good that day. He's not. The building, somebody gets hurt on the building, they go after the 5-year or the 1 year. In case a fireman gets hurt on the fire escape, they go after the 1 year or the 5 year. In case I am an inspector for, you know what I'm saying, and there's a 5-year on this chair, and I get hurt because he didn't do his job, who do we sue? The city or the 5-year guy? 5-year guy, right? 5. There's never been a 5-year for 50 years or 75 years in all of LA, ever. Only 1 year.
That scares you. Damn.
So now, let's assume everything we're going to talk about today, that there's been a 5-year. So right now, all your 1 years are really triggering a 5-year. You may be getting into a situation, yes, Alan, quick question?
I just want to clarify also the fact that when you say it's pristine, it isn't just our inspecting it. You know, as we inspect it, we're going to point out what needs to be corrected. So part of our 5-year and part of the certification is that someone may need to come back in and do some work on that fire escape.
Right.
You know, replacing bolts. So we're part of that process as well. So you know that when it's a 5-year, it's either been passed on the initial inspection or that it's had work done on it. That means that we're comfortable certifying.
And the law is clear on load testing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So after all this gets done, in the 5-year, we'll put sandbags on this. I'll show you sandbags and cables. We look, before you even did the 1 year, a year later, we put a bunch of sandbags on this thing. How comfortable are you now getting on it? How comfortable are you putting your fireman on this now? Because the 5-year was done by somebody who knows what to look at it structurally. And here's the best thing, the load test can be totally evaporated. You know how? You change all these bolts and you replace all the worn material or replace it, and you don't have to load test for 15 to 25 years. I take this chair and I change all the bolts, I change everything on it. The load, it's not load, you don't have to load test it for 15 to 25 years. Now that's just an industry Example, it's not written anywhere that they want you to load test this thing every 5 years. We're saying that there's no need to load test it because the NFPA says the authority having jurisdiction shall accept by load test or other evidence of strength. So you take a 50, 75, 100-year-old fire escape in LA, you take out every bolt, remove all the rust on the inside, there is no load test for the next 15 to 25 years. It's costly to put sandbags and dangerous. But here's the best, and hold your question for a second. The only thing you don't know is what goes into the building. We have an answer for that also. Because what in the building stays in the building, but you put a new connection into the building, so that way it eliminates the need for you to touch the old one into the building. Now, as soon as you verify that into the building with a new one, no load testing for the next 15 to 25 years. All the connections got sealed with 35 to 50-year paintable silicone. So again, in LA, 50, 75, if not 100 years, these fire escapes have never had their bolts changed. Ever. And so the 1 years stepped into, you guys are dealing with hand grenades. But you're now juggling hand grenades, stepping into a minefield. You're like, so you are right if everything was in the right process, and that is, if a 5 years been done on this, you guys are much more comfortable to give them exactly what you want. And that is, you must inspect the fire escape. And I'll show you on the stickers in a second that there's a 1 year in Seattle. There's a 1 year in San Francisco. The 1 years, you know who can do some of these 1 years? For example, you know who can do a 1 year inspection on a ladder? Just the ladders in San Francisco. The janitor. You can start a company and call yourself Joe's Ladder Inspection San Francisco, have no licensing of any kind, and inspect ladders in San Francisco.
You mean test or inspect?
Inspect, they don't use the word test out of in Sanford.
Inspect,
Inspect it.
just look, visual.
There's only 3 companies up there. There's Great Escapes, Mazzies, and
Escape artist.
Escape Artists. All right, so again, let me continue because we want to make the first 2 hours about crazy things. So we're going to change the script here, just to let you know. Assuming a 5 year has been done, yes, everything we're about to do is correct, correct? Assuming no 5 year has been done, who's carrying all this load? Who's carrying all this liability right now? Because he's saying, oh, you guys are doing this, right? No. Assuming there was a 5 year, your job is much easier and falls within your licensing, correct? And your insurance. Just go tell your insurance company that you're doing a full structural review of a fire escape for the Reg 4. They're going to say, okay? So this is the equivalent of me looking at your sprinkler systems, you know? Imagine me right now, having no experience in standpipes, giving my visual opinion on these standpipes as to whether or not they'll hold pressure someday if ever used. No, we have a 5 year on the standpipes. There's pressurized, they're, you know, oh, yeah. But imagine for 50, 75 years, standpipes were never pressurized, were never tested. And I come along and I'm just telling him, yeah, I saw valves there. Had a rusty top, I couldn't move it, so I just spray painted it. It looks beautiful now. That's what's been happening with fire escapes. All right, so, we gotta get onto the slideshow. So guys, this book is for you to take home. So we talked about lead paint. This is the first confidence test I ever made in the nation. It was up in Seattle. We're gonna cover it. Okay, look at the 1 year. The 1 year inspection that they want. They want you to go up the thing and tell me the bolt supports are not damaged or rusted. Paint is in good condition, and all moving parts, ladders, catwalks, and the windows are good. Why is the 1 year so easy? Because somebody already did the other 25 questions was not done by you, was done by this guy. Now you're going to review, because your 1 year is to find things that got hit by trees, things out of the ordinary, and sometimes you will find a bad engineer that gave them crap in the 5 year.
Don't point at me.
You're not an engineer, you're an architect. You know what I'm saying? So when that happens, it doesn't matter to you. You just stop your inspection. Because as soon as it starts getting into structural, who can really look at that? Is it you, or is it must go to a 5 year? So you're going to walk into all these clients of yours, look up and say, it must be structurally sound, must be kept painted, it's not been painted. Boom, you can stop the inspection. They failed it already. You don't have to walk, you're going to risk your life on that? You just tell the client, it's a 5 year. But some clients get sneaky, they'll paint it for you first.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you get there and you see major rust in some of these connections, what do? Stop the 1 year. This needs a 5 year, okay? Guys, this is what you want your engineers and your architects gotta do for you and for your client. This is called finger painting it for dummies. So sometimes when it's minor, they need to mark a few things with some contrasting colors. Simple. Red is an emergency. Yellow is repair it. White is cement. Pretty simple? A lot of buildings that are commercial need oversight, either architectural or engineer oversight on some major 10-story buildings. So a lot of times the building, if it's being renovated, you need to be part of their team of architects and engineers. So there's a construction control document that sometimes happens in various states. Okay? This is the repair procedures and guidelines on the next page. Okay? And just so you guys know I'm from Boston, right? So if you want to hear my crazy accent, yeah, we parked the car down at Harvard Yard. We're going down to the, we did win the World Series, but that's okay. So this is Boston certificate to the present day. Guys, the National Firescape Association is based out of Boston. Guess what they have done? Nothing. But there's other cities that have done something. But look, all I have to do as a certificate, a 5-year certificate for the city of Boston says, to the best of my information, knowledge, and belief, the egress component is in conformity with the provisions of the Massachusetts Building Code. And you know who can sign this? Structural engineers, architects, or firescape repair guys. So imagine the welding guys signing their own certificates on firescapes. Any room for corruption and oversight? Because I do have a master's degree in reverse stupidity. Not only do I know how to do it right, but I know a million ways to do it wrong. And that's what I'm here to teach you, not to do it the wrong way. Because the wrong ways, you know where they land you? In court. The wrong ways, and I've been on both sides. I'm an expert witness in a lot of cases. People win millions of dollars. But I've also been on the other side when somebody got hurt in Chicago and I was a defendant on a firescape system. So that's where I learned. I was 7 years of crazy, but I learned so much, and that's why I'm an expert witness. And some of my clients have won anywhere from $3 million to $39 million from being hurt on your buildings.
Is there any fines or discipline for any tester or for 5-year inspections that they did something wrong?
For Reg 4?
Or Reg 4 or any kind of test or inspection or not?
Well, again,
So let's say I found something that supposedly did a 5-year and they didn't do it right. Do they get discipline or?
right, so Reg 4 will discipline Reg 4. If all of a sudden, because right now, he's not part of Reg 4. He's a registered architect or registered structural engineer in the state. So can John report him to the state for doing bad things? Yes. Can you call the licensing for him and say, hey, I got a guy that's testing these firescapes and he's not doing his job? The answer is yes. Can you call, and I think I saw an ad that you had some fire inspectors pretending to be fire inspectors and you had to put out a bulletin, if I'm not mistaken. So he will go through the Attorney General to make sure that if things like that are found, because this is life safety. If they're gonna put the public at risk, throw them under the bus, man. Drop a dime, let John know. No problem.
They're
Yes.
supposed to have a C16 license in California to do firescapes?
Again, you must be, a design professional must be registered in the state of California. That's it. So registered, so a firescape inspector is higher than a Reg 4 inspector.
No, I'm not talking about contractor,
Oh.
fire protection contractor.
So if anybody's doing a repair,
Mhm.
yeah,
Or testing.
no, well, again,
It's fire protection.
right.
So you need a C16 license to do anything, it has to be with fire protection.
Okay, so that's, I think John can answer that question more than, he's asking if somebody gets a Reg 4 license from you for,
Reg 4 certificate.
a Reg 4 certificate for sprinklers, firescapes, alarms, or anything, does he also have to have a California license?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Not him, but the company he work for.
The company that did.
Okay.
Testers. C10, C16.
But other cities, they don't require any electro. So let's say
In-
Pasadena. Anybody can do it.
Right, so again, that's the thing. So here's one city that says yes, Pasadena says no, that San Francisco says no. So it's really up to the individual cities on how they're gonna treat, but a lot of times you wanna have anything that's fire protection, they should go through all the proper licensing. And California and LA, they're the only ones that make you guys get an additional certificate every 3 years here in the city. They're the only ones. All the cities that deal with the US. Everybody else has just state licenses. There's no, so right now in San Francisco, you know who can inspect fire escapes in San Francisco under the 604 or the 908? General contractors can inspect fire escapes under 5-year, design professionals, and pest control contractors. Yeah, so if you know how to look for cockroaches, you can also inspect fire escapes. So, all right, so with that, this is the drawings of all the typical fire escapes, guys, right? All the components, we'll cover that today. All fire escapes must be complete and over the roof to a public way. So a lot of times when fire escapes end on a roof and there's no protective guiding you to the ladder, it's missing a piece of its component. And it's got to go all the way down to grade. You can't have fire escapes where you jump to the ground, 6 feet, 8 feet, 12 feet. You can't jump. There must be complete to grade. And then we do walkarounds. So a lot of times in various cities with fire prevention primarily, we walk around fire prevention as well as Reg 4 people, as well as architects and engineers.